Good evening. This is All Sports with LD coming back at you with another YouTube post from my YouTube channel. Before I get started, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Okay, so let's get to it. On May 7th, Alvarez will be fighting Bivol. So I'm going to review this fight by first looking at both men's last fight. So starting with Alvarez, he fought Caleb Plant last. And I remember watching the fight live. And as I was watching the fight, I'm saying to myself, yeah, Canelo is going to eventually catch up with Caleb. And the reason why is that, through the fight, Caleb Plant was moving fairly well. He was doing feints, fighting in angles, great shoulder roll defense. I mean, it looked like he had the total package. But the thing that I noticed throughout the fight is he never really nailed Canelo with a meaningful punch that would have made Canelo say, wait a minute, I just cannot walk in on this guy. He threw a lot of pity-pat punches, with his jab and combination, and a lot of times he missed. So as the fight wore on, you saw Canelo stalking him and using, pretty good head movement. Canelo put his gloves up, blocked most of the shots off his gloves. Like I said, he bobbed and weaved. And then through the whole fight, from rounds 1 to the end of the fight, round 11, Canelo was doing a lot of body shots and a lot of head shots. He was catching Caleb flush. And you can see as the fight wore on, it was wearing Caleb down. Because, also too, Caleb never, like I said, hit Canelo with any meaningful punches. So in the end, ultimately, Canelo stopped him in the 11th round and became undisputed super middleweight champ. So, you can congratulate Canelo because he won the fight. But when you actually take a look at his opponent, if Canelo is considered the A side of boxing or one of the A-list fighters, then Caleb Plant was actually a B-level fighter, which Canelo was supposed to be, and really does nothing for his legacy. I mean, this is something that you would expect an A-level fighter to be the B-level fighter. So, but other than that, congratulations, he did win a super middleweight, undisputed super middleweight champion of the world. However, it was against a lesser opponent than probably the other fighters in the super middleweight division. I'm a bit surprised that Caleb Plant was the IBF super middleweight champion, and I think the other belts were vacant. So unfortunately, it looks like he was probably the best available champion in the super middleweight division. But nonetheless, Canelo won the fight. So then moving over to Bivol. So I watched his last fight against Umar Salamov. I think I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But, as I watched the fight, Bivol has a decent jab. He landed the jab pretty solidly. Through different stanzas in the fight. He threw some combinations. Not all of the combinations landed. He was missing quite a bit. He was able to pretty much dominate Salamov. And the reality is, Salamov was an actual lesser fighter than Bivol. and it showed throughout the fight. He, like I said, he dominated the fight. There wasn't really anything exciting about the fight. He landed, punches, and he was scoring, obviously. They weren't really real solid shots. I mean, there were some good shots landed, but nothing that would have make you stand up and say, "Ooh, this Bivol guy got power." I didn't see anything where he was hitting Salamov with it. It was like he was basically shaking him to the core. I didn't see any punches like that. Although he landed some combinations, landed a decent jab, but he never rocked Salamov. And so I thought Salamov was a lesser opponent than Bivol, and yet he lasted 12 rounds with him. I can say, it was really an unimpressive fight, in my opinion. One of the things I saw that Bivol does is when an opponent throws a punch or comes forward, he backs up in a straight line with his hands up, but leaving himself open up the middle. A more savvy and faster puncher like a Canelo Alvarez would land uppercuts up that middle. So that's pretty much what I saw. I didn't see anything that would lead me to believe that Canelo has really anything to worry about. I think this was probably an opponent that was handpicked. That was, in my opinion, would probably be much easier than Caleb Plant. I did see at one stanza, Bivol got hit with a straight right hand. It didn't stun him, but it was a flush shot. Salamov didn't really have any much power on his shots. I suspect that would be different for Canelo, being able to land those heavy thundering shots. So all in all, basically what I've seen is there's not too much for Canelo to worry about here. Like I said, I think this was a fight that he and his team picked. In my opinion, an easy opponent. He's probably in my opinion, just judging him. If I'm looking at Caleb Plant versus Bivol, there really isn't a whole lot of difference. So I think this will be an easy fight for Canelo. I think Canelo should win this fight with a middle or late round stoppage. To me, I'm still not sure I'm gonna watch this fight because, after watching Bivol, the highlights of Bivol's last fight with Salamov, I'm not impressed with the selection of the opponent that Canelo selected. Again, I think they cherry-picked or hand-picked this guy because they probably knew he wasn't going to be much of a threat. So, and what's gonna happen, or what has happened, is as Canelo continues and he continues to pick these lesser opponents, it actually is gonna it's not gonna bode well for his legacy. If you kind of look back over his fighting career after fighting and losing to Floyd Mayweather, he's pretty much almost taking kind of easy fights where it was pretty much a given that he would win those fights. It wasn't like he was fighting someone and was up in the air, like you really don't know if he's going to win this fight. So really, I think Canelo really needs to step it up in the level of competition that he selects, because at the end of the day, when you start seeing him select these easier fighters over and over, now the legacy and or the ability to challenge himself, it really becomes suspect now. that what is he really after? Is he really out there trying to fight the best? Is he really trying to challenge himself and put himself in a fight where he could possibly lose this fight because he's fighting someone with equal and or better talent? You're just not seeing that with Canelo Alvarez over his last few fights. It's just like his foray into the light heavyweight title against Kovalev. Kovalev was already a shot fighter, so really it wasn't a surprise that Canelo knocked him out. Again, this didn't do anything for his legacy. It only added questions to his legacy and whether or not he's, in a sense, brave enough to take that challenge. To say after, because there's one article or interview where it says he's learned so much after losing to Mayweather, but to me it doesn't appear that he's learned very much. Although I would say probably what he has learned is learn how to duck real competition. So it remains to be seen whether Canelo is gonna, after he fights Bivol, it remains to be seen if he's gonna actually step up and select stiffer competition, because the fans want to see him in a fight where maybe he gets put on the canvas and maybe has to dig down in his repertoire of weapons and really, search for that warrior spirit and pull out a victory. We want to, the fans want to see that, to really see, has Canelo really progressed? And in my opinion, he really hasn't progressed in terms of, because if you look at after he lost the fight to Mayweather, then after that, you look at the level of opponents that he's selected. And in my opinion, they've been pretty easy opponents. Pad his record, pad his pockets, earn titles, so on and so forth. So that's what I have. Again, I'm not sure if I'll tune in on May 7th to watch the fight. So that's what I have for now. Have a good one.